everyone. Welcome back to another episode with the Crime and Coffee Couple. My name's Allison.
And my name's Mike.
Hi, Mike.
Hello, beautiful darling.
How are you?
Oh, you got a little something in your teeth, it looks like. Okay, well, I guess we'll just roll forward with that one because you guys can't see it, but I'm going to be staring at it the whole time.
Maybe the cameras can see it.
Maybe they can't.
Oh, no.
Let's cut.
Okay, we're back.
And
I've gotten the food out of my teeth.
Yeah, this happens to Allison all the time because I don't know what it is about your teeth, but they just are suction cups for little pieces of food.
The structure of my teeth just pull any rogue broccoli or pesto. That's what it was this morning. I had the Starbucks egg and pesto sandwich.
Oh, who got that for you?
My lovely husband right here.
Oh, that was nice of him. What a nice guy.
He's
what
so
a nice,
sweet. He's
nice
a decent guy, Mike.
Yeah, and that's my TikTok handle, by the way. And so many of the followers came there. And now there's something, I think I said something about our dog, like pooping on somebody's lawn and how I was like kind of a jerk
she
to them.
peed.
She peed on somebody's lawn. I was kind of a jerk to them. And people are like, ooh, man. And now they're like, you're not such a decent guy, Mike.
Oh, I'm sorry. When we take our dog for a walk, she smells other dogs and she does pee.
Yeah,
so
whatever. So speaking of animals, why don't you tell our listeners and all those people about an animal you just saw recently?
It was quite a moment this morning. I was not very proud of myself. It'll just give you a little taste of my intelligence. But I was going on Snapchat and just checking on things. And I was looking at my cousin's page and she did one from South Dakota where she lives. And she's like, oh, I finally spotted the red panda. And I see it like wandering through like this brush area. And I was like, oh, interesting. I guess red pandas are in South Dakota?
Yeah, and I was like, I don't think so. I'm like, I think she was at a zoo or something. Like, I don't think, because I saw the same Snapchat, and I was like, nah, that's not, I didn't think, well, there's one in her backyard.
And I was like, but it kind of looked like a backyard.
Yeah, and then our son was there too, and he's like, Mom, I think red pandas are in like Asia. I don't think they're in South Dakota.
So I said to Google, I was like, are there red pandas in the United States? And it's like, yes, at zoos and nature conservatories or conservations or something, whatever it said.
Yeah,
I was like, ew.
Yeah, well, I mean, it was a cute little thing, and that's all right.
Sharp as a tack, this one.
Yeah, you've been really loving some Instagram reels recently with these like little Shiba Inu dogs talking to like they're like, you've been like, I every time I pass her by, she's like, Mike, you got to look at this one. It's so funny. It's so funny.
There's such funny things online. I just crack up.
Yeah, that's always a good time. We got some decent news for our son. He's been trying his butt off to try to make the baseball team for the varsity team, and he got told by the coach that he wants him practicing with the squad and everything and being on a travel team. So it's a huge win as far as our family's concerned. So.
We may have shed a few tears of happiness this morning when
Absolutely.
we found out.
Yeah, so it's not like officially making the team, but the coach definitely wants to look at him. So that's like the biggest thing probably going on in our family right this second.
We're celebrating his win because when you watch your kid work their tail off for so long and it finally pays off, it's just such a feeling of, happiness.
Because we're going into this baseball season because he's no longer in Little League. And it's like, what is he going to do? And we're like, I think he's going to join a travel team somewhere. I don't know what we're going to see, but yeah, I don't know. So it's, we weren't that like early travel family. We didn't get into travel baseball because we didn't want to be like committed to it every single weekend. Maybe it's a little selfish.
Well, I mean, we were at the baseball fields every weekend, but just not to that extent where it was like all day, every Saturday and Sunday.
Yeah. And spending like a college tuition on travel. Not
right.
that it's for some people.
I mean, to
that's
each
fine.
their own.
Yeah,
it's just the path we took.
Yeah, exactly.
But it's just great to celebrate a win.
Yeah, absolutely. And if you're new to us here, we really appreciate having you around. We like to break into each episode, just kind of have a little coffee talk with each other.
Coffee talk.
Yeah, we're just one of those like little mom and pop coffee shops. I'm Pa.
And I'm Mom.
Yeah, and so we are just one of those shops that are local, and we're not a huge conglomerate and not a huge network. We're just here telling you a horrible, terrible true crime story every single week. Every single Sunday, we deliver a new free episode, and every single Wednesday, there's a bonus episode.
So on that note, are you ready to get started?
I think so.
All right, so this is the story of the Lane Bryant massacre. So 2025 marks the passage of 17 years since 5 innocent victims were brutally and senselessly murdered, while one victim survived only after playing dead inside the back room of a Lane Bryant clothing store within a peaceful Chicago suburb. So sadly, this case remains unsolved to this day. And recently, other podcast networks have brought attention to the case, but we wanted to provide coverage for it as well because it's very personal to our family. And Mike's sister was actually scheduled to open that very store that very morning of the murders.
Yeah, she was an employee there, and it's something I've kind of blocked out of my own mental awareness because it was just such a horrible, horrible thing, obviously. And it could have been my sister. She was scheduled to work that day, and I mean, I this is one of those stories. Every story, I don't know the background, but I know the story inside and out, no doubt about it. And so thankful my sister's still around.
So at 10:44 a.m., this is 44 minutes after the store opened the doors for the customers that day, a 911 call came through from the store. The dispatcher heard a whispered voice of the store's manager say, "Lane Bryant," while a man's agitated voice could be heard in the background. And tragically, only moments after this call came through, this man ended up shooting the 6 victims one by one in the back of their necks, execution style. So we're stepping back to Groundhog Day. This is Saturday, February 2nd, 2008. It was a blustery, cold winter morning in Tinley Park, Illinois, with temperatures that were hovering in the 20s. So Tinley Park, Illinois, otherwise known to locals, because we are locals too there. We were locals. We grew up in the suburb right next door to that. We just called it Tinley. So it's a suburb that's situated 30 miles or 48 kilometers southwest of Chicago. So two Lane Bryant employees were gearing up to open the store that day on what began as just a typical quiet Saturday morning. They were anticipating a busier day than normal because they were holding a clearance sale. So Lane Bryant, if you're not familiar, it's a women's clothing store that specializes in plus-size clothing. And this particular franchise was situated in the Brookside Marketplace Outdoor Plaza on 191st in Harlem. So what began as a routine morning suddenly ended in unimaginable violence. So what happened inside the store that morning became one of the worst mass murders in Chicago history. And despite the passage of 17 years, the murderer has never been identified. And this lack of justice has only intensified the anguish that these victims' families deal with on a constant basis. And I don't care how many years go by, that hole is always there.
Yeah, I mean, we're still getting. I mean, for instance, this case, the way we found out that some other networks were going after it was that so one of our friends came to me and was like, "Hey, just so you know, they're looking into your sister's case, and hopefully trying to figure this whole thing out."
So this case, like I mentioned, it's near and dear to our hearts since Mike's sister Erica was actually scheduled to open the store that morning, as she did every Saturday. So while she was working the previous evening on Friday, she actually stayed longer than she was scheduled to help close because she saw that her coworkers were running behind. They were busy, so she's like, you know what, I'll just stay longer. I'll help you guys close for the evening. So while they were going about their tasks, Erica was chatting with her boss. This is 42-year-old Rhoda McFarland. And she insisted that Erica take the next day off to celebrate her 25th birthday. So the culture within Lane Bryant was very tight-knit, and this is according to Erica. She said that the coworkers often stepped in to support one another, so if they knew somebody had something going on a day they were scheduled to work, the other person would be like, you know what, just take the day off, I've got it, I've got you covered. And Erica was no exception to this. She was always there to lend an extra helping hand. And that's why Rhoda assured Erica that Saturday would be covered and she should just enjoy her day off and celebrate her birthday. So had that moment passed without that suggestion of an unexpected day off, our 2 kids would have likely never known their aunts. Because at that moment that we got that phone call from Erica on Saturday morning or afternoon, she was in hysterics. I was about 5 weeks pregnant with her first nephew, our son Cameron. And each birthday that she has celebrated since that time is just a terrible reminder of that horrific day. So on that particular Saturday, Rhoda herself, Erica's manager, was not on the schedule, but she was just a wonderful, supportive person, and she decided to pop over at the store to help an employee that was covering that weekend get the store ready because she knew they were having that sale. So she figured things with the sale would be a little bit more hectic than usual. This is an unnamed 33-year-old nursing student that she was going over to the store to help open. So, according to Erica, before the store opened for the day, the covering manager routinely took the money from the prior shift because Lane Bryant on a Friday night would close at 8 p.m. So the Saturday morning manager would take the money from the register to the bank and make a deposit. So this would leave about $200 in the register as they opened their doors for the day so that they had enough money there just to make change for the first customers of the day if anyone was choosing to use cash. So Rhoda and her employee officially unlocked the front doors of the store at 10 a.m., and within minutes, their first customers began filtering into the store and browsing the racks of clothing. And it was right around this time that a man came in, and he carried himself with the air of a delivery man, and he carried a stack of papers that really only reinforced this idea. And he was up at the front of the store speaking with Rhoda and her employee. They were talking for several minutes, but Rhoda knew that there was no delivery scheduled for that Saturday morning. Of course, she's a manager. She would know this. She wanted to clarify this fact, so she decided to call a nearby Lane Bryant, thinking maybe this man had the wrong location. So this person was later described as a black man somewhere between 25 and 35 years old. He stood somewhere between 6 foot and 6'2". He had a husky build that his weight was proportionate with his height. His skin tone was medium to dark, and his hair was braided with 3 to 5 puffy cornrows that were pulled back toward the back of his head. There was one distinctive lone braid that hung down his right cheek. It was near his ear, and it was adorned at the end of the braid with 4 light green beads. He had no visible scars or tattoos. He wore clothing that was dark in color beneath his waist-length jacket. He had black jeans that had embroidery or rhinestones on the back pockets that were similar to a cursive G, while he wore a charcoal gray ski or skull cap on his head. So after he was inside the store for about 15 minutes, they were chatting and trying to figure out the situation with this so-called delivery. It became very clear that he was not there at all for any sort of delivery when he suddenly pulled out a .40 caliber Glock handgun, and he began shouting at everyone who was inside the store. So at this point in time, this included Rhoda, the manager, her 33-year-old employee, and 2 customers that had just randomly filtered in that morning. So the man demanded that Rhoda and her employee retrieve the cash from the store's register as he screamed for each woman who was there to hand over their wallets as well as any visible jewelry. So the group of 4 women were then herded at gunpoint to the back of the store in an area that was designated for employees only. Once here, each of the women's hands were bound behind their backs with duct tape that the man had brought with him that day for that purpose, and he demanded that they all lay face down on the floor. So while these 4 victims lay trembling on the floor, the man began to make sexual advances to at least one of the women with a degrading grope. So he went back out to the front of the store and he took underwear from a display and placed it over the head of each victim, likely to obscure their vision. Meanwhile, the front doors of the store remained unlocked and open to the public, and this allowed additional customers who were unaware of what was going on to simply innocently walk into the store to just do some Saturday morning shopping. So during this time, 2 additional women came in to browse, just looking for an outfit, and they happened to interrupt the gunman. And like the 4 others, they were also forced to the back of the store at gunpoint, making it a hostage situation that now totaled 6 women. So their hands were also bound with duct tape, and they were ordered to lay face down on the floor just like the other 4 were. So one of the women began to fight back against the gunman. He struck her in the face at least once, likely pistol whipping her with the butt of his gun and leaving her bloodied and stunned. So by this point, about 45 minutes had gone by, and the once calm and collected gunman began to grow increasingly agitated. During a moment of distraction, Rhoda seized her opportunity, and despite the fact that she had been bound, she somehow managed to quietly take out her cell phone and dial 911 unbeknownst to the gunman.
What an absolute hero.
So the call came through the Will County Sheriff's Department and was quickly transferred to the Tinley Park Police, who maintained jurisdiction over the location where the Lane Bryant was. So Rhoda's heartbreaking plea for help could be heard as she whispered, "Lane Bryant." The audio of the call cuts in and out while the man's voice can be heard in the background, although I will tell you it's difficult to clearly understand what he's saying. If you listen very closely, you can hear him say, "I'm losing it," and "foolishness."
911 emergency. Lane Bryant. No!
I'm looking at bullshit.
Wow, so it's weird how it cuts in and out. Is that how it's made? Like
It's what the police have released to the public. It was right around 36 seconds.
So there's extra there. But it's also very systematic. It's like every couple seconds it cuts off. So it's I don't know. That's you can definitely hear what you said though. That's just chilling.
So it's possible that the gunman noticed what Rhoda was doing, as only moments, maybe seconds after the 911 call, he opened fire on each of his 6 hostages in what became known as an execution-style mass shooting. 5 of the 6 women likely died very quickly. With the 6th woman, she just so happened to turn her head at the very last second, and this allowed the bullet to graze rather than enter her neck. So wounded but still alive, she laid unmoving on the floor, hoping with everything that the man would just think that she was dead and leave. So a police officer just so happened to be on a call in the very plaza where Lane Bryant was situated that morning. He was closer to the super target, maybe only a few hundred yards away from where these victims were being held and then shot, completely unaware that this was happening. So after the 911 call ended, he arrived at the store within maybe a minute. But sadly, by this point in time, the killer somehow managed to get away, slipping through the hands of justice, probably by mere seconds. So because he got away so quickly, it's theorized that the gunman maybe had a getaway car waiting for him, because there was no sign of him when the officers began to make a sweep of not only the store, but also the plaza and the surrounding area. So as the first officer arrived at the scene at 10:46 a.m., he came upon a horrific scene. There were 5 deceased victims as well as the 1 survivor. And as he called in the details, additional officers began to arrive also within minutes. Paramedics attempted to treat each of the victims, but sadly 5 innocent, lovely human beings were pronounced dead at the scene. So the Tinley Park officers were quickly joined by investigators from neighboring cities and counties, and soon the entire Brookside Marketplace Plaza was shut down. They began to sweep through the entire plaza. This contained not only Lane Bryant and the Super Target, but also PetSmart and other popular stores and restaurants. So Sean Tyus, this is a black man who just so happened to be sitting in his car at the Target parking lot. He was apprehended and detained for more than an hour as officers continued to ask him, "Where is the gun?" The soles of the man's shoes were examined, and he was asked if he had removed the 4 light green beads from the hair that was braided. But confused, this guy's got absolutely nothing to do with what just horribly happened at Lane Bryant. He was waiting for his girlfriend who had run into Target. So after investigators determined that the couple arrived after the shooting, Sean was cleared from this case.
Right. And this is the type of community, this kind of stuff doesn't happen. It doesn't happen in most communities. And like Allison and I, we lived right there. Like this was huge news when it happened. Like everybody was scared because this, guy just got away. It was crazy.
Right. So Tinley Park officers are not at all used to dealing with this immense kind of crime. This, like Mike's just said, was utterly shocking.
Yeah, murders didn't happen. This was a regular suburb of just like anywhere else.
So police utilized helicopters to scour the surrounding area of the shopping plaza in the hours after the shooting. Of course, they don't know what they're looking for at this point. They don't know how the guy got away. They don't know how he got there. But because the location is situated right off of Interstate 80, the killer could have quickly fled the area and even been out of the state and over the border of Indiana in under an hour.
And that's like a straightaway. I've gone over 100 miles an hour on I-80 several times. And it's, you can get in and out. And they didn't know what kind of car he was driving.
No idea.
All they were looking for was a black guy with 3 green beads in his braids. That's hard to find.
Right. And I-80, it's a Saturday morning. It's not a lot of traffic probably. He could have just been right out of there.
Yeah.
So the surviving victim bravely recounted the harrowing events of that morning to investigators and worked with a sketch artist to create a detailed composite sketch, which was released to the public 9 days after the murders on February 11th. However, months turned into years, and the grief-stricken family members of the victims were left without any sense of justice. The man who had come into the store that day and callously took the lives of what he believed in his mind to be 6 victims was a free man, outliving his life, where the lives of so many other people were changed forever. So 42-year-old Rhoda McFarland, she had only just gotten engaged to her fiancé, Stuart. She was laid to rest in Crest Hill, the same town where she had once worked as a pastor. 800 people gathered to honor her life, and those who love her don't want her to be remembered as a victim, but rather as the person who she was in life. She had 3 brothers, 1 sister, and after she graduated from Lyons Township High School in 1984, she moved on to the U.S. Air Force. 22-year-old Sarah Safransky was the youngest of the victims. She had only just recently graduated from Northern Illinois University. Mike and I both went to that college in May of 2007. She was the oldest of 3 children. She was bubbly, smart, and kind. She was loved by all who knew her. She was a homebody. She loved to be home and play board games, be with her family, spend time with her boyfriend Brian, who was also a homebody. That Saturday, she was out shopping at Lane Bryant for winter work clothing because she had just lined up a job at CNA Financial Corporation in Chicago. 33-year-old Carrie Chioso was from Frankfort, Illinois. Her memorial service was held in the church where she and her husband, Tony, had gotten married less than 2 years earlier. The couple had begun discussing the idea of starting a family together. She earned her bachelor's degree at DePaul University and a master's degree at Loyola. She was working in social work. She was helping at-risk youths at the high school where she had graduated from years earlier. This is Homewood Flossmoor. She stopped by Lane Bryant that morning. She was just browsing for outfits to wear to a meetup with former classmates that she had gone to school with at DePaul. And she was going to go that evening. It was just all these things were happening in these people's lives. So during her memorial, the principal at Homewood Flossmoor spoke of Carrie and said, "Where people are ordinary, Carrie put the extra in front of ordinary. She quietly was a part of all that we do." So 37-year-old Connie Woolfolk, she had been working the overnight shift at the Target that shared the plaza with Lane Bryant. She was trying to make ends meet while she was developing a family mortgage company alongside of her mom. She had a 10 and 16-year-old sons, and she just also, her sons happened to attend Homewood Flossmoor High School where Carrie was working. So it's like, somehow they were
A lot of connections.
connected, yeah. So Connie had a fierce love for her family, and her youngest son suffered from spina bifida, and he required a lot of her attention and care, and she was always there for her family. Connie stopped into Lane Bryant that morning to pick up a new outfit after she had treated herself to this rare mani-pedi because she was the type of person who was trying to make ends meet. So it's not often that she was treating herself. She was a hustler. She was working her tail off. But she was going to a birthday party with some friends that night, and she wanted a new outfit. She's likely the customer who fought back against the shooter, as not only did she have bumps and bruises on her face, but she also had scratch marks on her body, and there was blood found under her fingernails, which gave police possibly a potential DNA sample. But there's a lot of stuff we don't know in this case because it's technically still open. So 34-year-old Jenny Bishop, she was the 5th and final victim from South Bend, Indiana. She was a mother to 3 young children, ages 7, 5, and 6 months. Despite her professional successes, Jenny's children were her life. She was an intensive care nurse at Memorial Hospital. She worked her way up the ranks to a charge nurse, where she was known to her coworkers as compassionate, kind, and she was an efficient nurse. She traveled to Tinley Park that morning with her husband of 9 years, Brian, because he had a work conference in town. So on a whim, Jenny popped over to Lane Bryant. She was just passing the time. She was picking out an outfit to wear that evening. That was like the theme of the day. She had only just celebrated her 34th birthday 4 days earlier when she was given the gift card for Lane Bryant, and that's why she chose to go there that day. So the surviving victim, the sixth victim, was a 33-year-old part-time employee of Lane Bryant who only covered weekends because she was attending nursing school during the week. In order to protect herself, she's chosen not to reveal her name to the public, and some of the public has dubbed her Martha. So she survived her injury. Like I said, as the shooter was firing one by one down the line, she just so happened to turn her head. So she was treated at the scene until she was transferred to a local hospital, and she was released the following day. Because she was the only surviving witness of the gunman who remained at large, she was kept in protective custody so that the killer couldn't come after her or her family. So the survivor spoke with investigators on a number of occasions to provide them with details in hopes that maybe this guy could be found. Since she was the only eyewitness to the tragedy, her narrative has painted the picture of the events of that nightmarish morning. In the aftermath of the tragedy, she wrote a letter to the loved ones of the 5 victims who didn't survive the attack that morning. The letter ended up being delivered to the press by the Tinley Park police, and it read, "On Saturday, February 2nd, an unspeakable tragedy occurred, and 5 of the bravest women I have ever met were senselessly murdered and taken from their families. My deepest sympathies and condolences go out to their family and friends. Please know that during the unfathomable events of that day, their thoughts were focused on you and coming home. My heart aches that they were unable to do so, and I am working with the authorities in any way possible for all of the victims. I ask that the media please respect all of our families and allow us to grieve and cope privately with the horrific crime that ripped our worlds apart. I also ask that everyone respect that neither I nor my family can discuss the horrible events of that day. I thank everyone who has expressed concern and ask that any person who can assist in the investigation contact the authorities immediately." So as word of this horrific mass murder began to quickly spread throughout Tinley Park and the surrounding areas of Chicago, which, like I had mentioned before, are generally considered very safe, many believe that what happened at Lane Bryant was a robbery gone wrong. So investigators looked very closely into the backgrounds of each of the 6 women involved to determine if maybe this guy had some sort of connection to any of them, and maybe he had a potential vendetta against one of them.
Yeah, because you think, like, it's not just going to be some random thing. He's going to drive out to Tinley Park and shoot a bunch of people. Like, you assume he came from the city somewhere, probably part of a gang or something, whatever it might be. But that's why they're trying to get some kind of connection. Like, why?
Right.
Why here? Why now?
So, however, these women, they were productive, hardworking, good people. Some of them worked in retail. One was starting out a new career. Another was a social worker, a nurse. They were mothers, wives, daughters. They didn't lead high-risk lifestyles. Nothing within their background suggested that they had ever previously known this man or crossed paths with him. The 4 shoppers who came in that day did so by chance. The man wouldn't have been able to anticipate that they were just going to randomly pop into a Lane Bryant in Tinley Park that morning. So it's highly unlikely that any of those 4 shoppers were specifically targeted. The killer loitered around the store for about 40 minutes before his actions turned violent and threatening, which would suggest that none of the women recognized him or showed any sort of familiarity toward this man, who remained unmasked through the entire time that he interacted with these women. So the only motive investigators were left with was robbery, simply because nothing else fit. Not only had the man taken money from the store itself, but also from the victims. With this, he made off with somewhere around $200 that was left over in the register, in addition to whatever money he may have gotten from the victims from their wallets or their jewelry. So somewhere around $250 or so. In this man's mind, 6 lives were lost for this amount of money.
Insane, man. It's like just such a difference of perspective. Like, it's not worth killing one person for hundreds and millions of, unless they're a terrible person. That's crazy.
So over the years, people have been very outspoken about the fact that the motive for what happened was likely unrelated to robbery, as Lane Bryant, it's not a cash-laden store. Many of the customers are making their purchases using a card. And not to mention that, but a lot of the clothing is very affordable. It's not like you're going in and stealing a Chanel purse that you're going to later sell for a high cash amount.
Yeah.
So that's why it just didn't make sense to a lot of people. So since the killer entered the store just after the doors opened for the day, he may have made the assumption that the money from the night before would have been left in the register. He was unaware that the manager had already made that bank deposit. So the spokeswoman for Lane Bryant's parent company, this is Charming Shops Inc., made the statement in the days after the murders in regards to the expected cash amount in the store that morning and said, but certainly it was early in the day. One would assume that the cash levels were really low. Some theorize that the man may have been a drug addict and was desperate and would have been satisfied with any amount of money just for a quick fix. And since the horrific ordeal within the store lasted nearly an hour, during which in this time the gunman began to lose his control and composure over the situation, some people speculated that maybe he was going through drug withdrawal. So after the man ordered the women to the back of the store, he bound their arms with duct tape and placed undergarments over their head in order to obscure their vision. This led some to believe that he may not have been initially intending to shoot them, but my thought is that prior to this moment, they were clearly able to see his features. So why cover their eyes now?
Well, clearly we're not dealing with the smartest of individuals here.
Or the most sound mind or whatever was going on, whether it be mental illness and or drug use. So based on the timing of Rhoda's 911 call, it's possible that he made the snap decision to shoot his victims so that they would be unable to provide authorities with his description.
And that's like the one thing I was like, well, maybe he saw Rhoda on the phone. He's like, well, now I got to kill all of you. But it's like either way, they would have seen you. So it's, there wasn't like.
Right. Either way, if he would have left with the money, they still would have been able to tell the police what he looked like.
And I don't know why he was hanging out for a whole hour. Like, just take the cash, get all the jewelry and go.
So there's speculation and I'll go through that. But the call has been a valuable piece of evidence. It gave investigators the man's voice, and perhaps advancements in technology could, potentially use the sound of his voice or the tone or cadence to identify him. So an unnamed source within law enforcement who spoke with the Chicago Sun-Times in 2008 believes that the man likely planned to continue to rob additional customers who continued to filter into the store that morning. Because that was your point. Why not just take what you have and go? That maybe he was still loitering around. Why wouldn't he have locked the front doors if he wanted to leave it at that?
Yeah, get like 20 or 30 customers taking all their wallets, I guess.
But maybe he wanted to continue to gather people and continue to rob.
Right.
So possibly. So when he realized that Rhoda called 911, maybe he thought that his thieving scheme was over and that he couldn't continue to do this.
Yeah.
So this source went on to say she tried to close the phone and he shoots her. Then he shoots the rest of them. So because the killer remains free, these are only theories.
Well, who's this random source? I mean, I know you don't know the name, but like, why are they a source?
I don't know. He must be maybe a history
Gang
of law
member or
enforcement. I don't know. So investigators were left to work with the evidence that they had, as well as the information from the surviving witness, as well as from any potential witnesses that had been in that high traffic area of the plaza that morning. So the surviving victim, who lived in Mokina, Illinois at the time, she provided police with the bulk of the information. Obviously, she is an eyewitness to the exact accounts as to what happened in that store.
And there's so much pressure on this poor Martha. Like, it's just like you're the only link to all of this, and we're 100% dependent on you.
Yeah, that's all they have. So this includes how the gunman entered the store. What did he do during the 40 minutes before he took his victims captive? How did he guide and bound each woman to the back of the store, as well as what led to the eventual shooting? So rumors have been discussed about potential DNA evidence that has been obtained from the crime scene. Some mention that there may be a coffee cup that the shooter carried around with him and drank from that morning. However, the existence of the coffee cup nor the specifics on what evidence was collected from the crime scene has been confirmed by law enforcement. It is believed that there was a DNA sample obtained. There's also the mention of the blood that was found under Connie's fingernails because she fought the shooter back. But because the gunman has not been identified, this would suggest that there either wasn't enough DNA that was left behind or it wasn't a match to a sample within the FBI's coded database. This would mean that this man had no prior criminal history, nor has he been caught on any future offenses
Which
since
is
that time in early 2008.
kind of hard to believe that somebody like this wouldn't have some kind of an offense somewhere.
So my thought process is this is a guy that is clearly highly violent, likely living a very violent lifestyle. So there's also a really high possibility that he's now deceased and maybe he died shortly after this event.
Yeah, and he's clearly a loose cannon, and
Right.
anything can set him off. So I'm sure somebody probably killed him.
So based on the bullets and the shell casings that were collected in the back room of the store, the gunman utilized a .40 caliber Glock semi-automatic handgun that he took with him when he fled the scene. So this weapon has never been recovered. There have been exhaustive searches in nearby forested areas because the area around this location, there's tons of forest preserves. But it's likely that he just took it and kept it. So sadly, because Lane Bryant lacked security cameras, this is back in 2008, there is no footage of the gunman. Police visited other area businesses hoping that maybe they could have gotten potential footage of this guy.
Or the car or whatever, just erratically, something that sticks out.
Right. And obviously they have the surviving victims' witness accounts, but just to reinforce what he looked like. How did he get away? What way did he take? So the most useful video stemmed from the Target that sat within the Brookside Marketplace that was only a few hundred feet away from Lane Bryant. Although the footage was grainy, a team from NASA was able to discern that there were two vehicles that pulled in front of Lane Bryant that morning just around the time that the shooting began. So the two cars that were seen in the footage were, one was a dark sedan, the other was a large SUV type vehicle that entered the camera's frame at 10:39 and 10:40 respectively. Rhoda's 911 call was placed at 10:44 a.m., 5 and 4 minutes after these cars pulled in. Both of these cars left 1 minute later at 10:45 a.m., one after the other, suggesting that maybe they were somehow involved. Maybe one was a lookout car, one was a getaway car. So if this was the case, it would mean that it was a planned operation. It was carried out by a minimum of 3 individuals. Within 1 minute of the shooting, both cars vanished. The identities of these drivers remain unknown. And of course, police would have broadcasted this and said, if you are the owner of this car, please come forward. Let us know because we want to find out. That person has never come forward. Do you think there's a possibility that they were linked?
Yeah. I mean, anything's a possibility until they get it figured out. And the thing is about Target always has and has had one of the best security systems of like any retailer out there. They're always cutting edge. Like I work in the security industry and I have for a while, and Target has their own team and like some of the best security people alive like work for Target. So if anybody's going to have it, doesn't surprise me that Target does. And yeah, absolutely. There's some kind of connection, I would think.
So the sad part is, though, that the footage was so grainy that they could not read the license plates.
Well, yeah, this is a long time ago.
Right. So 2 versions of Rhoda's 911 call were eventually released, the one we played for you earlier, and they were released to the media. So the original call where Rhoda's whispered voice could be heard with the shooter's voice in the background, as well as one that focused and enhanced the shooter's voice.
911 emergency.
No! Oh, it's out here. Something to do, huh? What is that? What's that up to? I'm looking at foolishness. Right?
That foolishness is such a unique thing, and that helped a lot to bring it all together into the pauses. But yeah, that's chilling again.
So because the shooter had a unique hairstyle in regards to that single braid that trailed down near his right ear, which was then adorned with 4 light green beads, investigators visited area salons thinking maybe someone in the area had done his hair, but that, proved to be unsuccessful. So Criminal Profiles Greg McCrary and Clint Van Zandt, who identified the Unabomber, Ted Kaczynski, assisted the team in this case by creating a profile for the killer, which they shared with the Chicago Sun-Times. Despite the fact that the man's DNA was not a match to any in the system, it's their belief that he was previously incarcerated. The fact that he was so easily willing to murder what he believed to be 6 innocent women, it's like suggests that he is a very violent man.
Yeah.
And that, maybe once he killed one person, he vowed that he would never go back into the prison system.
Maybe, yeah.
So he's likely believed that he was mistreated by society. They also theorize that he may have known one of the victims or personally targeted them and believe that this victim may have been able to identify him, leading him to shoot all 6 victims. So according to Gary McCreary, once they've killed somebody, in a psychopath's way of thinking, everybody has to die. So according to Clint Van Zandt, either way, something went wrong that caused him to take 6 women down. Maybe one of the victims recognized him, or he felt that he had been recognized. So they believe that this man is clearly highly dangerous, that he would be willing to kill anyone in a position to help the police catch him. This would include someone that's close to him. If it was his girlfriend or a family member, he wouldn't care. He would be willing to take somebody out.
And all these people in his life would know that.
Right. And so if we're going to share the 3D image that ends up being created, it is so clear. It's like you're looking at a person's face. So no doubt, if it was created accurately, many people would be able to recognize this guy and say who he is, but they probably know how highly dangerous he is, and they're not going to be the narc, and they're not going to be the ones, because especially if he's involved in a gang and other people in the gang are going to come at you for being a narc, you're going to keep quiet. So John Kelly, who's a criminal profiler who has worked on the case through his organization's System to Apprehend Lethal Killers, or STALK Inc., developed a potential profile and believes that the man lives outside the area, possibly in a bigger city. I mean, likely we would think Chicago.
Yeah.
So he likely has some experience delivering to businesses based on the fact that he entered Lane Bryant posing as a delivery man.
That's a great point. Like, why would you pick that out of anything?
Right. So entering the back door and showing a manager the paperwork would also serve as a ruse to scope out the joint to see what kind of surveillance do they have. Do they have cameras in place? So his actions prove that he was impulsive. He was desperate for money, possibly related to addiction or gang ties. The fact that he came into the store on a busy Saturday morning when a sale was being held implies that he is not a sophisticated criminal. He chose a busy plaza with many, potential surveillance cameras. Because like I said, there's some big stores in this plaza. We have a Super Target. We have a PetSmart. He wore no mask in broad daylight during a time in the morning when cash is likely pretty depleted in the register. So this is something that an experienced criminal would likely not do. So he was also said to have looked up and around the store after he initially entered and spoke with Rhoda and the surviving employee. It was likely at this moment he was trying to assess to see if the store had surveillance. So this suggests that he did not scope out this location before he wandered in there that Saturday morning. And that's not sophisticated.
No.
So his killings that morning may not have been his first homicide. One would assume that they're not. And it may not have been his last. Somebody that's so willing to just easily kill 6 people, they don't care about life. They don't care about humanity. So because he killed everyone he believed could identify him, he likely very quickly altered his appearance because he wanted to make sure that nobody could recognize him in the chance that he was picked up on surveillance. So despite the passage of nearly 2 decades at this point, the police continue to investigate new leads and tips and refuse to classify this case as cold. Because the case remains unsolved, a lot of information has not been released, such as what evidence may have been left behind, including fingerprints, hair, shoe prints, etc. So we know that the police examined the sole of Sean Tyus's shoes, the guy that was just sitting in the Target parking lot waiting for his girlfriend. So clearly they were looking at the bottom of his shoes for a reason. So we would assume that the shooter left a distinctive print behind. It's been suggested that police have DNA evidence, like I said, possibly from this coffee cup, maybe from under Connie's fingernails. It's unclear what they have. Is it workable?
Not being released.
No. So the gunman was not described to be wearing gloves. We would assume he would have left touch DNA behind. Anytime we're walking around touching, we're either leaving DNA and fingerprints behind. So, the fingerprints then would have been uploaded into AFIS, which is the Automated Fingerprint Identification System. This is a computer database that has fingerprint records. But because this guy remains on the loose, we either don't have his fingerprints or they weren't in the system. So the Tinley Park police have been assisted by other investigative agencies. This includes the Illinois State Police, the South Suburban Major Crimes Task Force, the FBI, the Secret Service, Scotland Yard, and NASA. Investigators even reached out to the exclusive Vidioc Society. This is a Philadelphia-based members-only club that consists of prior law enforcement experts. They pool their knowledge and expertise together and their resources to help solve cold homicide cases. And sadly, they were also unsuccessful. So on the 10-year anniversary of the shooting, this is February 2nd, 2018, with the help of Michigan State Police, an updated 3D image of the gunman was released. And this is the one I had mentioned before. And it portrays the shooter in a very, very realistic way. I mean, you could be looking at a human. Although this has led to many new tips and leads, it still has not led to the shooter's identity. The Tinley Park Lane Bryant location within the Brookside Marketplace, it closed permanently after this horrific day of the shooting. The clothing that was inside the store at the time was dispersed to local charities, and the building remained empty for nearly 6 years until TJ Maxx took it over in November of 2013. Harris Bank in Frankfort, Illinois, curated the Tinley Park Memorial Fund by Lane Bryant's parent company, Charming Shops, Inc., with the goal of assisting the victims' family members. They also donated a reward fund. Originally, that was $50,000 for information that could help lead to an arrest. While Crime Stoppers added an additional $5,000, Charming Shops later raised the reward to now what it is $100,000. So as the investigation continues, the pieces of the puzzle continue to fall into place through ongoing tips, some credible, some not. The hope is that one day the puzzle will fully come together and result in an arrest. Someone has the information for those last missing pieces. And if the reward money isn't enough to bring a person forward, perhaps the weight of a guilty conscience will be the driving factor. With the help of new technology paired with tips from the public, new ways of processing evidence, new ways of looking at gathered information, this cold case can be cracked. I mean, we hear about cases that are multiple decades long, maybe even using investigative genetic genealogy to find this person. So since so many years have gone by, the volume of tips have just naturally started to go down, but the investigation remains active and all information received is taken very seriously. The man responsible for taking the lives of 5 innocent women, Rhoda McFarlane, Jennifer Bishop, Carrie Chioso, Sarah Safransky, and Connie Woolfolk, has never been held responsible for such an unfathomable act of violence. If you have any information in regards to this case, please contact the Tinley Park Police Tip Hotline at 708-444-5394. Again, there is a $100,000 reward that's available for information that leads to an arrest, and any information provided will be kept confidential. You can also reach out to the tip email at lanebryant.tipline@tinleypark.org. And that is the horrific and sad case of the Lane Bryant massacre.
It's definitely something that hits close to home. Obviously, my sister could have been one of those executed, just like those poor ladies that were. And it's just a disgusting, horrible human being that ended up doing this. And I can't believe that they've had some of this evidence for like 20 years and just nothing has been found. It's kind of baffling. It's like you wonder what's going on. Like, just seems something really odd. Like, this guy clearly is a horrible, crime. He's done other crimes.
He's a horrible criminal. He's a violent person. What are the odds that his DNA it's not in the system?
It's zero. That's some kind of DNA somewhere or fingerprints of his somewhere exist, unless, like you said, unless he's dead.
Right.
Now, what's interesting, there's a lot of talk about this case recently, which is why we chose to finally cover it. It's something that's been close that I didn't really want to, bring up just for, I don't know, whatever reason, but it's just kind of, there seems to be a lot of chatter, and there's a documentary coming out pretty soon. I think this one's pretty close to being maybe solved, hopefully.
I mean, that would be amazing. I just can't imagine in my mind that this person is still alive, because like we just said, if he were still alive, he'd be in prison or dead. There's no way in my mind that he's just out not committing heinous acts.
And at the very least, somebody has known him or seen him, from that 3D face profile. It's like, oh yeah, that was so-and-so.
Right.
I used to talk to this guy before, and I know him from here. Like, and then you look into it, it's like, yeah, he was a gang member, blah, blah, blah. Okay, you got yourself probably the suspect, you know? And you got to think that they have some kind of suspect somewhere. You know, it's just a matter of getting him. I don't know. So maybe he's still alive. Maybe that's why they're so tight-lipped about it. We even reached out. One of our really good friends is a high-end person at one of the local police departments over there. And he tried to help us reach out to the person that was responsible for investigating this, and the guy retired. And he's trying to stay tight-lipped because it's an ongoing investigation.
He's retired. It's an active investigation. Yeah. You know, he doesn't want anything to do with it, so he didn't get back to our friend. But you know, I just hope that one day that this person can face justice if he is still alive.
I feel like they know who it is. It's just a matter of finding some kind of evidence.
I mean, if they've got DNA and they have his DNA, it's a boom match, case closed.
Yeah.
But I just can't imagine in my mind that this person's still alive and out there. I just can't.
Yeah, pretty crazy. So thank you for listening. And something that definitely means a lot to our family. Without, I don't know, if my sister ended up, visiting that day, like you said, our kids wouldn't have an aunt and we wouldn't have a sweet little nephew.
But it's just those sliding door moments of life, those moments that you don't know. It's like you are delayed 5 seconds at home because you ran in and forgot something that could change something that was going to happen. It's like, had Erica not stayed late at the store on Friday, maybe Rhoda wouldn't have suggested her taking her birthday off. You know, I don't know maybe it came out in what they were chatting about.
And maybe my sister would have been one of the ones taken and Rhoda would have survived because she wouldn't have had to come in. And like, there's so many what ifs, it's like, I'm so sorry to the families that were affected by this.
So devastated. And I'm so sorry for them. The loss is just so tremendous. They were amazing human beings that were just going through life, doing what we all do on a daily basis when everything changed in an instant. And it's just so sad.
Yep. Hug your loved ones. You never know.
Yeah. So thank you guys so much for being here with us. We appreciate each and every one of you. We will be back on Wednesday with bonus content if you're interested. Otherwise, come back and see us on Sunday. And until next time, bye.